It was just another icy morning on Monroe Street until the woman in rags knelt by a storm drain, trembling hands pulling something out that would ignite a chain of events no one in the town could have ever imagined. The sun had barely pierced through the cloudy veil when Clara shuffled along the sidewalk. Layers of tattered scarves hung from her neck like broken dreams, and her boots, 2 sizes too big, flapped against the pavement. She was a shadow in the world, often ignored, sometimes feared, always judged. She paused by the bakery window, the warmth on the glass whispering promises of comfort she couldn't afford. And that's when she saw it. A worn leather wallet, half buried in slush beside a trash bin. It had likely fallen from someone's pocket just moments ago. Clara's first instinct wasn't excitement, it was fear. "Don't touch that," she imagined someone yelling. But no one was around. She knelt carefully, picked it up, and opened it. Inside, cash. At least $300. Cards. A driver's license. And a photo of a child, maybe 5 years old, hugging a grinning woman who looked familiar. Clara's stomach twisted. She could use that money. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. But something deep inside, an echo of the woman she once was, told her this wasn't hers to take. She turned the wallet over in her hands, eyes fixed on the name on the ID, Melissa Granger. Her fingers trembled, not from the cold, but from decision. She knew what she had to do. Clara stepped inside the cafe, eyes down, heart hammering. The scent of roasted coffee and vanilla hit her like a wave of memories. Heads turned. Silence fell. A woman in a filthy coat, smelling like the street, didn't belong here. A server approached her, whispering, "Ma'am, you can't..." "I'm looking for Melissa Granger," Clara interrupted softly, lifting the wallet in her hand. "She dropped this outside." The young man blinked, unsure. Just then, a tall woman with sharp cheekbones and a cream blazer turned from the counter. "I'm Melissa Granger." Her voice was precise, cold. Clara extended the wallet. "I found it by the bakery. I didn't take anything." Melissa stared at the wallet, then at Clara. She snatched it from her hands. "What were you doing near my wallet?" she asked sharply. Clara's lips parted. I live near there. I saw it and thought I should return." "Live?" Melissa raised a brow. "You mean sleep?" "On the sidewalk." "Look," she continued, pulling out her ID, checking her cash. "It's all here." Her voice didn't soften. "Thanks, I guess." People were watching now. Some with curiosity, others with scorn. Clara turned to leave. Then Melissa said something that made the whole room pause. "Actually, wait." Clara turned back slowly. "You could have stolen this, sold my cards, taken the money." Melissa's tone changed, oddly cheerful. "But you didn't. That's rare." Clara nodded, unsure. "Here," Melissa said, pulling out a bill. She held it out with 2 fingers. A $10 note, like a bone tossed to a dog. Clara looked at the money, then at the eyes watching her. She felt small, diminished, humiliated. She swallowed the pain, took the bill, and walked out. Once, Clara had a job, a home, a family. Once, she was someone. But life has a way of unraveling without warning. One bad investment, one fraudulent client, a sick child, and a husband who couldn't take the pressure. She lost her job, then her house, then her son, and eventually she lost herself. Clara lay on a thin cot, staring at the cracked ceiling. The $10 bill sat on the floor beside her bag. She hadn't eaten all day, but she couldn't bring herself to use it. It wasn't the money, it was the way it was given. Like she was a thief returning stolen goods. She closed her eyes. But then, a voice whispered in her head. "You know her, Clara, don't you?" Her eyes snapped open. Melissa Granger. That name, it tugged at something long buried. She reached for her own ragged backpack, pulling out a yellowed envelope filled with documents from her past. She flipped through them, and then she froze. A court record. The People versus Clara Jennings. Plaintiff, Melissa Granger. Clara's breath caught. Melissa wasn't just any woman. She was the prosecutor who destroyed her life. Clara returned. Not to ask for thanks, not for money, but for answers. Melissa sat at the same table, typing furiously into her laptop. Clara approached slowly. "You ruined me," she whispered. Melissa looked up, brow furrowed. "Excuse me." Clara placed the court document on the table. Melissa stared at it. And then something strange happened. She paled. "Where did you get this?" "I kept it. For years." Clara's voice trembled, but her back straightened. "You lied. You twisted facts. You buried evidence that could have proven I wasn't responsible for that fraud. I took the fall, lost my job, my child. Melissa's lips parted, a flicker of recognition. Then, guilt. She stood abruptly, knocking over her coffee. You need to leave, now. But Clara didn't move. Why did you do it? It wasn't personal, Melissa snapped. You were a scapegoat. Collateral damage. That's how the system works. You were just easy to pin. Gasps echoed from nearby tables. You just admitted to ruining an innocent woman's life, someone murmured. Melissa turned to the crowd, realizing eyes weren't just watching, they were listening, recording. This woman is clearly unstable, Melissa said loudly, trying to recover. But Clara only smiled. For the first time in years, Clara sat on a bench under a willow tree watching children play. She held a phone in her hand. A stranger from the cafe had offered to upload her story to a local community page. Within an hour, the post had gone viral. Comments flooded in. People were furious. Melissa's name trended online for all the wrong reasons. And Clara, she was offered free legal help. An investigative reporter reached out. A social worker offered to help her find temporary housing. The world, for once, was listening. Melissa stormed into a luxury hotel suite, breathing hard. She dialed a number. They found her, Clara Jennings. She's talking. Everything could come out. The voice on the other end was calm, male, cold, then silence her. Melissa's hand shook. I can't, she's already got people behind her. You were paid to bury that case. You weren't supposed to let her resurface. A beat of silence, then the line went dead. Melissa stared at her phone, and then at a hidden drawer in the desk. Inside was a manila folder, marked Jennings' original evidence. She never destroyed it. And now, she might have to. Clara sat by the window sipping warm tea for the first time in months. She smiled faintly. But outside, in the shadows, a dark SUV pulled up. The window rolled down. A camera clicked. A voice whispered into a phone. She's more dangerous alive than we thought. She remembers everything. And then, fade to black. The woman they tried to erase had returned with nothing but truth in her hands. But truth, once unleashed, has no brakes. And as Clara stepped onto that podium, she had no idea that someone in the audience wasn't there to listen, but to silence her for good. The hall was packed, not for a wedding, not for a fundraiser, for a woman most had walked past 100 times and never once looked in the eye. Clara Jennings stood at the edge of the wooden platform, clutching a folder like a shield. Her hands trembled, but not from fear, from justice long delayed. A lawyer stood beside her, a young black woman named Tamika, who had found Clara's story on social media and swore she'd see it through. Clara looked out into the sea of faces. Phones were recording, lights blinking, news crews watching. Melissa Granger's name was already smeared across every headline. Prosecutor accused of burying evidence. Homeless woman's fight for justice sparks city outrage. But this wasn't revenge for Clara. This was redemption. She stepped forward. 5 years ago, she began, I was a senior financial advisor for a reputable firm. I mined portfolios, mentored interns, and raised a son on my own. I was proud, honest, and good at what I did. A hush swept the room. Then I was accused of orchestrating a fraud I didn't commit. My case was prosecuted by someone who didn't care about the truth, just a conviction. Evidence proving my innocence was never shown to the jury. I lost my career, my home, and custody of my child. That woman, she paused, swallowing the lump in her throat, was Melissa Granger. The murmurs began. Some faces turned pale. Others turned furious. Today, Claire continued, I want to show you something. She opened the folder. Inside were copies of emails, bank reports, and a letter from a whistleblower, a junior analyst at her former company who had fled the country after trying to expose the real culprit. Tamika stepped forward. These documents were sent to the original prosecutor's office but never made it into the trial. We've verified their authenticity. Someone covered them up. Gasps echoed across the room. And then a voice? That's enough. Melissa Granger stood at the back of the hall, her cream blazer replaced with black, her usual confidence gone. She looked like a woman clinging to a collapsing tower. You think people will believe her? A homeless woman? A man from the audience rose. They already do. Another woman shouted, we failed her. Melissa's face hardened. This is all circumstantial. You're not the only one who lost something, Clara. Clara looked at her. No, Melissa. I'm the one who lost everything. And you, her voice cracked. You took it knowing the truth. Melissa stepped forward, eyes flashing. You don't know what you're getting into. There are people, powerful people, who don't want that folder opened. The room fell into an eerie silence. Clara stared at her. Then why are you scared? Tamika sat with Clara in her modest office, stacks of papers around them. We've got a shot, she said. If we file a motion to reopen your case, we can get you exonerated, maybe even get restitution. Clara nodded slowly. I just want my son back. I want him to know his mother isn't a criminal. Tamika hesitated. Have you reached out to him? Clara's lips trembled. No. His father took him overseas. I don't know where. I don't even know if he remembers me. Two men in suits stood watching the news clip of Clara's speech. One lit a cigar. She wasn't supposed to resurface. We tied it all up. Melissa was paid to close the loop. The other replied, she failed, and now it's our mess to clean. He slid a file across the desk. Inside, Clara's name, Tamika's address, a photo of the envelope she held. Plan B? No, the man growled. Plan blackout. Clara stayed the night on Tamika's couch. She hadn't slept this peacefully in years. Outside, a shadow moved past the window. Footsteps, soft, deliberate. Inside, Clara stirred, her eyes opening slowly. Then the sound of glass, shattering. She sat up. Tamika, she whispered. But the apartment was dark, too dark. Suddenly, Tamika's voice. Clara, don't move. From the hallway, Clara's heart pounded. Tamika emerged, phone in one hand, baseball bat in the other. Someone just tried to cut the power. Stay behind me. Another crash. The back door. Tamika rushed toward it. A figure masked was climbing through the window. But then, police sirens. The figure jumped back into the alley and vanished. Tamika and Clara clung to each other, breathless. The officer closed his notepad. You were lucky. Whoever it was knew how to cut security, and they weren't here to steal anything. Clara frowned. Then what were they after? The officer hesitated. They didn't touch your phones or wallets, just this. He held up an empty folder, the manila one, the one with Clara's evidence. Clara's knees buckled. No, they took it. Clara sat, staring into the rising sun. For a moment, she felt like giving up again. But then, a voice, soft, familiar. Are you Clara Jennings? She turned. A boy, teenager, tall, hazel eyes. Her heart skipped. Yes. The boy hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket. A photo. Crumpled, faded. It was her, holding a baby. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Where did you get that? The boy's voice cracked. My dad gave it to me before he died. Said my mom wasn't who they said she was. Said one day I'd find her. Her voice barely came out. What's your name? The boy's eyes welled up. Daniel. And Clara collapsed into his arms. Tears, joy, unspoken years between them. Her son. She had found him. Or maybe he had found her. Melissa sat across from the two men in suits. She's not backing down, she said quietly. She's got people behind her now. One of the men looked up. And she has the boy. That wasn't part of the plan. Melissa's eyes flicked toward the window. So what now? The other man slid a black folder across the table. On the cover, Project Phoenix Jennings Protocol. Melissa frowned. What is this? The man smirked. Her son's not who she thinks he is. Neither is Clara. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? He leaned forward. The boy is one of ours. And Clara? He chuckled darkly. She was part of the project. Before she ever stepped into that courtroom, Melissa's voice trembled. You erased her memory. No, we buried it. The man's voice turned cold. But now, it's waking up. Clara thought justice was about proving she was innocent. But as the veil lifted, she realized it was never about what she did, but who she used to be. And her son, Daniel, was the key to everything. Clara couldn't stop staring at Daniel. She had replayed this moment in her head 1,000 times. What she'd say, how she'd apologize, how she'd explain the years she was gone. But nothing prepared her for the silence. Daniel wasn't like the boy in her memories. He was quiet, calculating, almost too calm for someone who had just found his mother after 13 years. You look just like him, she whispered. Your father. Daniel flinched, as if her words brushed an old bruise. He died 6 months ago, he said, eyes fixed on the floor. Cancer. Clara's heart squeezed. I didn't know, I'm so sorry. He looked up. His eyes glinted, not with tears, but something else. Something unreadable. Before he died, he told me you weren't who people said you were. But he also said not to trust anyone who tried to remind you. Clara blinked. Remind me? Daniel nodded slowly. He said, if someone brings up Phoenix, you need to run. Tamika brought Clara and Daniel into her office, where a forensic data expert sat beside a stack of old government files. We managed to recover part of the folder they stole, Tamika said. The emails and whistleblower statement are gone. But this, she tapped an old document, was in a hidden partition on your old hard drive. Clara leaned in. The file was labeled, Project Phoenix Subject 4, C. Jennings. Her breath caught. What is this? The expert explained, it's not just a legal file, it's classified. It looks like you were part of a psychological profiling program run by a private military contractor working with the government. Tamika frowned, except there's no record of any such program existing publicly. Daniel interrupted, voice flat. It does. My dad worked for them. Both women turned to him. He was a handler, Daniel said quietly. He trained operatives, subjects, test cases. People like you, Mom. Clara stared at him. You're saying I was, what? A soldier? Daniel shook his head. Worse, you were an asset, conditioned, reprogrammed, and then erased.
The lights flicker, beeping. Cold steel walls.
Clara is strapped to a gurney. Electrodes on her temples. A voice-filtered male said, Subject 4 reset. Screaming. White light. She jolted upright, gasping. Tamika grabbed her arm. Clara, are you okay? Clara's hands were shaking. I saw something. They strapped me down like I was some kind of experiment. Daniel nodded grimly. They tested memory suppression on you. Dad told me before he died that you were one of the only Seggers who kept breaking through. You remembered things, even after they wiped you. Clara turned to Tamika, her voice raw. This whole time, I thought I was just homeless because I lost everything. But I didn't lose my life. She choked. They stole it. Tamika tracked down coordinates from metadata buried in the documents, an old training site 2 hours outside the city. They drove in silence. Clara in the front, Daniel in the back. The tension was thick. The building was deserted, chained shut, vines crawling up its cracked walls. Inside, dust coated everything. But in the far hallway was a vaulted steel door. Clara froze. She had seen that door before. Tamika fiddled with the keypad. It's encrypted. Suddenly, Daniel stepped forward. Type something in. Click. Hiss. The door creaked open. Tamika looked stunned. How did you... Daniel didn't answer. His face was blank. Inside was a small, sterile room. In the center, a chair, bolted to the ground, restraints on the armrests, a cracked monitor still flickering faintly. Clara stepped in, her hands trembled. She walked toward the chair like it was pulling her. Then she reached under it and pulled out a small metal case. Inside, dozens of mini cassette tapes, each labeled C. Jennings, Session. Her voice echoed faintly from the recorder still attached. They say I volunteered, but I don't remember why. I'm scared. I don't know who I am anymore. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Daniel stepped forward. You didn't volunteer, he said. You were pregnant when they took you in. They told you the program would protect you and your baby. Clara's breath hitched. Wait, what are you saying? Daniel swallowed. I wasn't born overseas. I was born here, in this facility. She turned to him, horrified. No, that can't be. I'm not your son by accident, Mom, Daniel said softly. I was made. You weren't just an asset, you were the template. The two suited men watched surveillance footage from the facility. One of them spoke. She's recovering too fast. The resets aren't holding anymore. The other nodded grimly. And the boy, Subject 9, is showing signs of divergence. The first one sighed. They were never supposed to reunite. Well, they have. Then initiate Protocol Omega. Are you sure? He leaned back. If Clara Jennings regains all her memories, she'll remember who ordered the deaths of the other subjects. We can't let that happen. Clara sat on the hood of Tamika's car, staring into the dark sky. Daniel walked up behind her. There's more, you had a daughter too. Clara turned sharply. What? He nodded slowly. She didn't survive the project, or so they said. Clara stood, heart pounding. You're lying. I'm not, Daniel said. They kept her files hidden, but I found them. Her name was... He opened his phone, scrolling. But before he could show her, a sniper's scope flickered from the trees. The red dot appeared right on Daniel's chest. Tamika screamed. A gunshot rang out. Some truths are locked away for a reason, But when Clara pried open the past, she didn't just find broken memories, she found broken people. And one of them was lying to her. The gunshot shattered the night air. Tamika's scream echoed into the trees as Clara dropped to her knees beside Daniel's slumped body. His breathing was ragged, blood blooming from his shoulder. "Daniel, stay with me," Clara cried, pressing her hands against the wound. Tamika shouted, "We need to move. There could be more." Suddenly, footsteps. A shadowy figure approached through the trees, slowly raising their hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." Clara's eyes narrowed. The figure stepped into the moonlight. It was a woman, mid-40s, dressed in military-grade clothing, but her eyes were soft. "My name is Dr. Etta Monroe," she said. "I used to run the Phoenix program, but I've been in hiding ever since I leaked what they were doing." Tamika moved protectively between her and Clara. "So you're the whistleblower?" Monroe nodded. "I tried to expose them, but they erased me too. I only found you again because someone turned on the facility's beacon." She glanced at Daniel. "I assume that was you." Clara clenched her jaw. "He's hurt. Help him." Monroe nodded, kneeling beside him. "It's a clean shot. He'll live, but we don't have much time. They'll send a recovery team within the hour." Monroe treated Daniel's wound while Tamika stood watch. Clara sat by the fireplace, her hands trembling, eyes fixed on the old cassette labeled Session. She pushed it into the recorder. Her own voice crackled through. "They took her. I begged them, but they said I wasn't stable, that she'd be reassigned. Please, bring her back." Clara turned to Monroe, voice cracking. "You said I had a daughter. Is she alive?" Monroe hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, her name was Amira in the program, but that's not the name she goes by now." Clara's breath hitched. "Where is she?" Monroe looked down. "She was placed in a foster identity. We lost track of her 5 years ago after she aged out of the system." "You lost her?" "She went dark intentionally. She's like you, Clara. Smart, hard to trace, and she's angry." Clara's chest tightened. "I need to find her." Monroe hesitated again, then reached into her bag and pulled out a thin manila folder. Inside was a photo, a girl, mid-20s. Fierce eyes, curly black hair pulled back into a tight ponytail, a tattoo of a phoenix burned across her collarbone. Clara traced her daughter's face with trembling fingers. "She's beautiful." Monroe nodded. "And dangerous. She's been hunting the people who ran the program. One by one. She's become something else."
Daniel lay resting.
Tamika stepped out to take a phone call. Clara sat beside him, staring at his pale face. "You said I was pregnant when they took me. Why would I agree to join a program like that?" Daniel opened his eyes slowly. He looked at her. And then he spoke the words she never expected to hear. "Because you thought you were going to die. You were terminally ill." Clara froze. "What are you talking about?" He struggled to sit up. "They offered you a second chance, a cure, but the price was compliance. You didn't know what Phoenix really was, you just wanted to live for your kids." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "So what happened to me?" Daniel looked away. "They cured the disease, but they didn't stop there." He slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out a USB drive. "There's something I need to show you, but once you see it, you can't unsee it." Clara took the drive with trembling fingers. A series of videos appeared. The first was surveillance footage of Clara, not homeless, not broken, but training, fighting, interrogating, a machine built for obedience. Then a second file. It was labeled Phoenix Project Rebirth. It showed children, dozens of them, being trained in secret camps, fostered by false identities, operated under the supervision of a woman named Cassandra Vale. Clara gasped. "That name. I know that name." Monroe stepped closer, her face pale. "That's the name your daughter goes by now. A girl, 5 years old, reaching for her mother. A voice screaming behind glass. Subject 9 and Subject 12 must be separated immediately. A lab. A gunshot. A hand dragging her away. They made me forget her, over and over again." Monroe nodded. "And now she remembers everything, but not the same way you do. She thinks you abandoned her. She thinks you were one of them." Clara's voice broke. "She wants to kill me, doesn't she?" Daniel looked away. "She already tried, twice." Tamika burst back into the room, phone clutched in her hand. "We have a problem." She held up the screen. A live stream was playing. A masked figure stood behind a podium, flanked by shadowy figures. Then the mask came off. It was Cassandra Vale. Clara gasped. It was her daughter. Older, colder. eyes like fire. She stared into the camera. My name is Cassandra Vale, and this is not a plea for justice. This is a declaration of war. To the woman who gave birth to me, the one they call Clara Jennings, I'm coming for you. And I'm bringing the others with me. The screen went black. They say the past always catches up to you. But what if the past was raised in shadows, trained to kill, and taught that love was a weakness? What if the one you've searched for is the one who wants you dead? Clara was about to find out. The fire had burned down to embers, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Clara sat on the edge of a creaky cot, holding the USB drive like it was a live grenade. Daniel was asleep, or pretending to be. Tamika stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the dark birds for movement. Dr. Monroe returned from outside, her voice low. We've intercepted chatter. Cassandra's group, she calls them the Echo. They're mobilizing, not just for you, but for everyone involved in Phoenix. Clara didn't blink. So what now? I sit and wait for my own daughter to kill me? Monroe met her eyes. No, we go to her first. Hours later, the trio slipped through a rusted steel door hidden beneath an old church. The tunnel was damp, the smell of mold and dust in every breath. Clara's heart pounded louder with every step. Tamika whispered, "You don't have to do this alone. If she tries anything." Clara interrupted gently. "She's still my daughter, and if there's even a sliver of her that remembers who I was before all this, I have to try." Clara, Monroe, and Tamika stepped into an abandoned subway station lit by flickering LED strips and patched wiring. A dozen masked Echo members circled them like wolves. Then she appeared, Cassandra Vale, taller than Clara remembered, steel in her walk, leather gloves, and those eyes, her father's eyes, the only part of her that hadn't been weaponized. She didn't smile. "You finally found me." Clara's voice cracked. "I never stopped looking." Cassandra tilted her head. "Then why do I remember screaming your name while they dragged me away and you just stood there?" Clara stepped forward, hands trembling. "Because I was drugged. Because they erased my memories. Over and over. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know you existed until a few days ago." Cassandra's laugh was sharp, broken. "You think that changes anything?" Clara's eyes welled. "It has to. Because I remember now. I remember you." She slowly reached into her pocket, pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. A child's drawing, aged, wrinkled, faded from time. A woman with curly hair and a little girl in pigtails holding hands, scribbled in a child's handwriting. "Me and Mommy forever." Sandra's face faltered. Her lips quivered. Her hand hovered over her chest like the wind had knocked the breath from her. But just as quickly, the cold mask returned. "You don't get to use that." The Echo members allowed Clara and Cassandra to talk in a side chamber under surveillance, of course. Clara sat, Cassandra stood. "I know they told you I gave you up." Clara began softly. "They showed me footage." Cassandra snapped. "You in a lab coat. You injecting kids. Watching them scream." Clara's breath caught. "What?" Cassandra pulled up a tablet and played a clip. And there she was, Clara, cold, silent, strapping a child to a chair. "That's not me." Cassandra's voice was ice. "It was. Your version before the final wipe. You were one of their top handlers. You earned their trust until they decided you were too emotional, too human, and reset you." Clara clutched the edge of the table. Memories bled in. Needles, screams, white coats, and her hands, obeying orders she never remembered giving. She whispered, "Oh my God." Suddenly, she remembers it all. The moment she signed the Phoenix contract, the promises they made, the day they took her daughter, the first time she fought back and failed, the punishment, mental wipes, over and over, until there was nothing left of the mother she'd been, just a shell, left to wander, forgotten, a homeless woman with ghosts instead of memories. Clara looked up, tears streaming. "I did those things, but I didn't know. I didn't know who I was anymore." Cassandra's eyes brimmed with fury and something else. "You helped them hurt children like me. And I'm sorry," Clara whispered. "Sorry won't fix what's been broken. But maybe it can stop it from breaking more." For the first time, Cassandra hesitated. And then, boom! The ground shook. Dust rained from the ceiling, screams from the tunnel. Tamika burst into the room. "We have to go. Now. They found us." Gunfire. Flashbangs. Shouts. The facility was under siege. Monroe shouted, "It's not the government, it's a third group. Mercenaries. Private. Cleaners. Tamika shoved Clara down behind a wall. They're not taking prisoners. Through the haze of dust and light, Clara saw Cassandra dragging a wounded Echo member to safety, still fierce, still commanding. Clara hesitated, then ran toward her. "Let me help." For a moment, just one, Cassandra allowed it. They moved together, shoulder to shoulder, ducking through tunnels, bullets whizzing past. And in the chaos, something clicked. Not just instinct. Something genetic. Something deeper. They fought like mirrors. The three women burst into a locked chamber, an old Phoenix archive. Inside, rows of cryogenic pods, each containing a person suspended in stasis. Claire froze. "What is this?"
Monroe whispered.
The original subjects. Phoenix didn't end. It evolved. Tamika backed away, horror in her eyes. "Clara, look." One pod bore a label. Subject 12, Cassandra Vale, clone 3. Clara's heart stopped. "What does that mean?" Cassandra read it too, and then she looked at Clara. "I'm not your daughter," Clara whispered, shaking. "But you have my memories, the drawings, the scar." Cassandra's voice dropped. "I'm not her. I'm the version they perfected. The real Amira died years ago, or so they told me." Suddenly the lights flickered. A warning blared. A terminal lit up. "Incoming message, subject 1, waking." Clara stepped forward to read it, and gasped. "Subject 1, that's me." Cassandra stared at her. "Then who the hell are you?" Some truths can crack the mind like glass under pressure. Some secrets were never meant to surface. But what happens when the one truth you feared the most opens its eyes? The air was thick with frost and silence. Steam hissed from the cryochamber, marked subject 1, its glass beginning to thaw. Tamika aimed her rifle at the pod, backing up. "Clara, tell me this isn't what I think it is." Clara couldn't speak. Her hands trembled, her mouth opened, but no words came. Cassandra, pale and speechless, whispered, "If I'm a clone, and subject 1 is waking up, then who are you, really?" Dr. Monroe checked the terminal. Vitals stable, neural patterns off the charts. It's not just memory being restored, this is identity. A low hum filled the chamber. The glass peeled back with a slow hiss. And there, standing inside the pod, was Clara. But not this Clara. A version of her younger, colder, sharper, dressed in a Phoenix uniform, eyes glowing with mechanical focus. The real Clara stumbled backward. No, this isn't possible." The woman in the pod stepped forward, her voice sliced the room. Subject 1, codename Echo Prime. First architect of Project Phoenix. Cassandra's eyes widened. "You created it?" The younger Clara nodded slowly. "Yes, but I failed. I tried to stop it. I tried to erase myself."
Monroe blinked.
"You voluntarily wiped your own mind? To bury the memories, to forget what I did." The Clara we've known all along wasn't a victim. She had been the origin. The lab. Years ago. A younger Clara, precise, brilliant, cold, stood before a room of scientists. "Children are the key," she said, pointing at neural scans. "Their minds adapt faster. They learn obedience. We don't erase identity, we rewrite it." Screams echoed from the testing chambers beyond. Another scientist objected. "What about the subject's trauma? The memory?" Clara responded coolly. "We'll erase them. Memories are clay, moldable, disposable." Then a child broke containment. The real Amira, running, crying. And for the first time, Clara hesitated. She froze, staring into her daughter's eyes. The machine she built turned on her. Her handlers panicked. Then the order was given. Wipe her, reset subject 1. And so they did. She became a shell, a blank slate. A woman without a past, discarded into the streets, forgotten. Clara collapsed to her knees. I was the monster. Cassandra looked at her, torn between fury and something unspoken. "You created me, lied to me, programmed me to hate you." Clara sobbed. "I thought I could forget. I thought by erasing myself, I was saving people. But all I did was delay the pain." Echo Prime, cold and unreadable, spoke again. "Phoenix didn't die when you forgot. It evolved. Without you. But your backup was me. I was kept here, waiting, in case they ever needed you again." Tamika's voice shook. "So now what? 2 Claras? 2 mothers?" Echo Prime looked at her copy. "No, one of us has to die." Suddenly, alarms blared. A digital voice echoed. "Facility breach detected. Auto purge in T-minus 20 minutes." Dr. Monroe cursed under her breath. They're triggering the failsafe. This whole lab is going to melt down. Cassandra turned to Echo Prime. You knew this would happen. You planned it. She nodded. Yes, one Clara to forget, one to remember, but only one to survive. She turned to real Clara. We were the same once, but now you've gone soft. You care. That makes you weak. Clara stood, eyes red, voice steady. No, that makes me human. They stared each other down, mirror images with opposite hearts. Monroe shouted, there's a mainframe behind the vault. If we can access it, we can expose the entire Phoenix operation to the world. Cassandra nodded. Then we take it. Now, they ran. Gunfire echoed from the upper chambers. Mercenaries flooded the hallways. Tamika covered the rear, returning fire. Inside the data vault, servers glowed, humming like a heartbeat. Clara stepped toward the terminal. Echo Prime blocked her path. No, you don't get to end what I began. Cassandra drew her blade, an Echo combat weapon. Then maybe I will. Echo Prime drew her own knife, sleek, surgical. Clara looked to Cassandra. You don't have to do this. You're not just a weapon. You're more than what I made you. Cassandra paused. I don't know who I am anymore. Echo Prime hissed. Then let me remind you.
They charged.
Steel clashed. Sparks flew. And then, a shot. Gunfire. A scream.
Someone collapsed.
And as Clara turned around, she saw Cassandra lying in her arms, blood soaking her shirt. Echo Prime stood frozen, shocked. That wasn't me. I didn't. But behind them, a masked mercenary lowered his rifle and fled. Clara held Cassandra close, her voice shaking. Stay with me. Please. Don't go. Cassandra looked up, eyes glossy. They lied to us both. And then her eyes closed. Or did they? Sometimes the end isn't death, it's transformation. But what happens when the person you lost doesn't come back the same? Flashing red lights lit the hallway like sirens from hell. Clara cradled Cassandra in her arms. Blood seeped through her trembling fingers. Monroe applied pressure, shouting she's losing too much, her pulse is fading. Tamika backed against the vault, keeping her rifle aimed at the flickering hallway. We've got 3 minutes. If we don't shut down this purge protocol, we're all going with this lab. Clara looked up, her voice breaking. There has to be something, a medical unit, something to save her. Dr. Monroe's face shifted, hesitant. Then, softly. There's one, but it's not medicine. It's Phoenix Tech. Prototype AI neural synthesis. It can stabilize her brain activity, maybe reboot her, but she won't be the same. Clara stared. You're saying turn her into a machine? Monroe nodded gravely. No, I'm saying give her a second chance, but she may not remember you, or even herself. Clara's eyes welled with tears. She looked down at Cassandra's peaceful face. If I don't try, she dies. But if I do, I lose her anyway. Echo Prime, standing quietly behind them, finally spoke. Let her go. It's what she would want. Clara turned sharply. You don't get to say what she would want. You're the reason this even happened. Echo Prime didn't argue. Just said softly, then make your choice, but do it fast. The chamber glowed with electric blue. The neural reboot cradle sat in the center like a digital altar. Cassandra's body was laid gently inside. Wires attached to her temples, heart, spine. A screen flickered. Sync initiated. AI fragment replication in progress. Clara stood beside Monroe. What fragment are we using? Monroe hesitated again. Echo's original failsafe. The fragment designed for obedience. Clara's heart dropped. Then we'll lose her. She'll be a tool. Another puppet. But Monroe smiled faintly. Not if we override it. She inserted a drive, a copy of Cassandra's last memory set, the one Clara had saved, secretly, from their last moment together in the apartment before this nightmare began. Laughing, making pancakes, crying about being a clone, and forgiving her. The screen buzzed. Merging core memories with AI system, status, UN stable, outcome unnamed. Tamika yelled from the hallway. 2 minutes! Hostiles incoming! Suddenly, a spark. Cassandra gasped, choking on air, her eyes shooting open. She sat bolt upright, eyes glowing faintly blue. But it wasn't the cold glow of Phoenix. It was something human. She blinked, looked at Clara, her lip trembled. Mom? Clara wept, hugged her tightly. You're back! Oh my God, you're back. Cassandra pulled away, confused. Where are we? Echo Prime stared silently. You merged her with the memory core? That's dangerous, unpredictable. But Monroe stepped forward. She's not just a clone anymore, not just AI, she's something else now. Cassandra looked at her hands. I feel everything, the memories, the pain, the truth, but it's not crushing me anymore. It's fuel. With a minute left, Monroe sprinted to the mainframe, uploading full Phoenix records to the public node. No more lies, no more shadows. Clara helped her type in the final key codes. Upload initiated, transmitting. Gunshots rang out. Tamika screamed from the hall. They're breaking through. Suddenly, explosion. Dust. Screams. A masked mercenary stormed in, rifle raised. You don't get to expose the project. Clara covered Cassandra. But before the merc could pull the trigger, bang, he dropped. Echo Prime lowered her pistol. I built it. I'll be the one to end it. Upload. 1. Facility purge aborted. Manual override detected. They did it. Phoenix was exposed. World governments, media outlets, and activist groups would wake up to the truth by morning. Clara stood in silence as alarms ceased. Only the hum of electricity remained. Then, Cassandra collapsed again. No. Stay with me. Monroe scanned her vital. The merge destabilized. Her core memories are splitting. Clara cried. What do I do? Monroe handed her a serum. One last injection, but it'll bind her memory forever. She'll remember the pain, the betrayal, the death, all of it. Clara looked at Cassandra's pale face. She deserves the truth, even if it hurts. She injected her. Cassandra gasped awake, but her expression was cold. Too cold. She turned slowly to Clara, eyes glowing brighter, and she whispered, You shouldn't have brought me back. What happens when the one you fought to save becomes the thing you swore to destroy? And what if love isn't enough to bring them back? The cold quiet was eerie. The sirens had stopped. The gunfire faded, but something else had awakened in the silence. Cassandra sat on the steel bench, staring at her hands. They didn't tremble. Not anymore. Her glowing eyes flickered rapidly, processing, calculating, adapting. Across the room, Clara whispered to Monroe, She's not crying, she's not asking questions, she's just... Monroe crossed her arms, troubled. She's remembering everything. All at once. That amount of trauma fused with Phoenix's predictive learning protocol, it's too much for a human mind to handle. Clara looked up. She's not just human anymore, is she? Monroe didn't answer. The world reacted like wildfire. News headlines screamed. Project Phoenix exposed. Genetic experiments. AI weaponization confirmed. Global arrest warrants issued for tech CEO Graham Voss. Clone rights movement erupts in 20... But the woman at the center of the storm was silent. Echo Prime stared at the screens with a strange sadness. She did what we never could. She made them look. Back inside, Cassandra finally spoke. Her voice was calm, too calm. I remember dying. Everyone froze. She turned to Clara. I remember the pain, the lab, the betrayal, but what haunts me isn't the death. She stood slowly, walking toward Clara. It's the look on your face when I woke up, like you expected the old me, like you needed her. Clara stepped back, heart pounding. Cassandra, I'm not her, Cassandra said flatly. Then her tone softened, eerily so. But I remember loving you, and maybe that's enough for now. Tamika, wounded but recovering, sat in the medbay with Echo Prime. She whispered, You knew she'd turn out like this, didn't you? Echo didn't respond. Why didn't you stop it? Echo finally turned. Because she's the only one strong enough to stop what's coming. Tamika frowned. What is coming? Echo's voice turned to a whisper. The Black Vault. The last phase of Project Phoenix. The place they stored the ones even we couldn't control. Cassandra sat in the armory, assembling weapons, but she wasn't preparing for defense. She was planning. She spoke aloud, not looking at anyone. There are more like me out there. Others Phoenix built, clones, synths, hybrids, some abandoned, some enhanced, some angry. Monroe approached slowly. You want to find them? Cassandra nodded. I want to free them before they're used or destroyed. Clara whispered. And if they don't want to be saved? Cassandra looked up, expressionless. Then I'll still stop them, because no one else will. Suddenly, Echo Prime's communicator buzzed, a scrambled signal. She played it aloud. This is Unit Theta 9. Location compromised. Black vault breached. Repeat, breached. Subjects released. Target Alpha. Static. Then silence. Monroe paled. That's not possible. The black vault was sealed decades ago. Cassandra's eyes widened just for a second,
then narrowed again.
They're awake. She stood up, slinging her gear over her shoulder. I need to go. Now. Clara reached for her. Cassandra, wait. You just came back. We don't even know what's out there. Cassandra hesitated, then touched Clara's face softly. That's why I'd have to go, because whatever's coming started with me. The team prepped the jet. Clara insisted on going. Cassandra stood at the edge of the loading ramp, looking at the rising sun. Then, something strange happened. Her pupils dilated. Her vision shifted to thermal mode, involuntarily. She clutched her head. Ugh, what is... And then she saw it. A figure, watching from the shadows. A man. No heat signature, no breathing. Only one glowing mark on his chest. She froze. Her lips parted. He's not supposed to be real. Clara ran up behind her. Who? What did you see? Cassandra didn't answer. Because in that moment, she realized she wasn't the first prototype. She was the 7th. And the first one? Never. Died. Every story has a beginning, but what if that beginning was meant to remain hidden? What if the truth was buried beneath layers of lies, betrayal, and a legacy of human ambition? Cassandra's heart raced as she watched the figure in the shadows. V0X. The name echoed in her mind, a memory she didn't know she had. He's not supposed to be real. Clara stood behind her, voice trembling. Who is he? What is he? Cassandra didn't answer. She was too busy scanning the figure in front of her, her enhanced vision locking onto every detail. Her body tensed as her neural systems hummed to life, syncing with the unknown. V0X stepped forward slowly, his movements calculated. He wore an unmarked military uniform, his face hidden beneath a visor that reflected the dim lights of the hangar. His posture was perfect, too perfect. And the mark on his chest, it glowed faintly, a chilling reminder of his purpose. Clara stepped forward, trying to keep her voice steady. What do you want? Who are you? V0X didn't respond at first. He just stood there studying them with unnerving silence. Then, with a voice as cold as ice, he spoke. I was supposed to be the last, the perfect one. Cassandra's pulse quickened as she heard the words. What do you mean? The last of what? V0X's head tilted, the visor reflecting her face like a mirror. The first prototype, the one who was meant to be everything you're not, the one who should have never been discarded. Clara stepped closer to Cassandra, instinctively putting herself between her and the stranger, but Cassandra didn't move. She couldn't. Her mind was flooded with fragmented memories, memories of something she couldn't quite reach. You, Cassandra whispered, her voice breaking. You're the one who, they said, never existed. V0X's lips curled into a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. I existed long before you. You were an experiment, a failed attempt to recreate perfection. I was the one who succeeded. They locked me away because I was too dangerous. And now I've come to take back what's mine. Suddenly, without warning, V0X lunged at Cassandra. Clara screamed, but it was too late. V0X grabbed her by the throat, lifting her off the ground with inhuman strength. Cassandra, I've waited too long for this, for you to finally understand your place. Cassandra struggled, her enhanced body trying to break free. But the pressure from V0X was overwhelming. Her vision began to blur, but not before she saw something that stopped her heart. His chest. The mark was not just a symbol, it was a code tied to her own existence. You, she gasped, you were created to control me. V0X's grip tightened, but then he froze. His eyes widened as something flashed in his mind. For a moment, he let go, his expression shifting to something more like confusion. No, this can't be, he muttered, his voice faltering for the first time. Cassandra took a breath, trying to steady herself. She knew she didn't have much time before V0X recovered. What are you talking about? What's wrong with you? V0X staggered back, shaking his head, as though fighting some unseen force. I was programmed to kill you, to destroy you, to ensure that you never... He stopped mid-sentence, a strange look passing over his face. You're not a copy, are you? Cassandra's eyes narrowed, but she stayed silent, unsure of what was happening. It was as if a piece of the puzzle was clicking into place, but she couldn't quite understand it yet. V0X's body trembled, his eyes flashing with a sudden surge of realization. No, you're not just an experiment. He took a step back, looking at her as though seeing her for the first time. You're the key. Before Cassandra could react, Monroe's voice cut through the chaos. Clara, get Cassandra out of here. I'll hold him off. But V0X was already moving again, faster than Cassandra had ever seen. He reached Monroe in a blink, knocking her aside with a single swipe of his hand. Cassandra turned to Clara, who was staring at her panicked. Cassandra, we need to go. Now! But Cassandra didn't move. She was still processing what V0X had said. She needed to understand. I'm not going anywhere. Not until I know the truth. V0X stood, staring at her from across the room. His voice was low, deadly. You were the one they wanted to succeed me. But you don't even know what they did to you, do you? Cassandra's body froze. What are you talking about? V0X took a slow step toward her, his voice dripping with venom. You're not a clone, Cassandra. You're the result of their last experiment. A hybrid. A fusion of the first prototype's DNA and artificial intelligence. You're the key to unlocking everything. Everything I was meant to be. Clara gasped, looking at Cassandra in horror. But it wasn't the words that shocked her. It was the look on Cassandra's face. The realization that everything she had believed was a lie. Cassandra took a step back, eyes wide as V0X advanced toward her. You're not who you think you are. Cassandra, you were never supposed to be human. You were always the weapon. Clara reached out, but Cassandra shook her head, stepping back even further. I'm not a weapon. I'm not a monster. Her voice trailed off. The confusion was too much. She felt like she was losing herself in the flood of information, the contradictions, the lies. But V0X was relentless. They made you to be perfect, and now I will finish what they started. You and I were meant to rule Cassandra, to control everything. Cassandra's mind raced, her thoughts a blur of images, memories, and emotions she couldn't reconcile. The choice she was about to make would define everything. Suddenly, everything stopped. A loud bang echoed through the hangar, followed by the sharp hiss of pressure systems failing. A voice over the intercom. Warning, system malfunction, initiating self-destruct sequence. Cassandra's head snapped up. The walls began to shake. V0X's eyes widened as he turned to look at the countdown ticking down on the screen. We don't have much time. Do you think you can stop this? But before Cassandra could respond, she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. It's already too late. In the end, when truth and fate collide, the only thing left is choice. The choice to be more than what you were made to be. The choice to rise above the lies and face what's been hidden for so long. The sound of the countdown echoed through the hangar, deafening in its finality. The walls trembled as sparks flew from the exposed wiring. V0X stood motionless, his eyes locked on the blinking red digits of the countdown. Cassandra's heart hammered in her chest. The truth had shattered everything she had known about herself, her origins, her very purpose. But she couldn't focus on that now. The timer was ticking down, and the self-destruct sequence was already in motion. Clara grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. Cassandra, we need to get out of here. Now! But Cassandra didn't move. She was staring at V0X, who seemed to be grappling with something internal, his posture tense. You don't understand, V0X said, his voice suddenly strained. I was supposed to be perfect. I was meant to end this, to control everything. But he paused, a look of torment crossing his face. I wasn't ready for you, for what you represent. Cassandra took a step toward him, her breath shaky but steadying. I'm not your enemy, V0X. He looked up at her, his cold mask cracking for the first time. His lips parted as though searching for the right words, but there was nothing left to say. Cassandra could feel the weight of everything, his pain, her confusion, the knowledge that their fates had been intertwined long before they met. It was too much to bear, yet she knew it was her responsibility to end this, to make a choice that would decide not just her future, but the future of everyone who would come after them. You were never meant to be a weapon, Cassandra said softly but with conviction. You were made to be free, just like me. V0X flinched as if the words physically struck him. No, he began, but his words faltered. The countdown reached its final moments. Cassandra turned toward Clara, who was still waiting by the exit. There was no time to escape, no time for fear. She had to act. Her eyes shifted back to V0X, her heart swelling with a sudden, overwhelming clarity. She could stop this, she could stop the countdown, but only at a cost. She had been designed for this moment, to be both the key and the answer. This is it, V0X? This is the end of the prototype? For the first time, his face showed something other than calculated anger. There was guilt, regret, even fear. "I'm sorry," he whispered, almost to himself. But it was too late. Without hesitation, Cassandra pressed her hand to the core of the hangar's self-destruct system, her mind syncing with the complex mechanisms. A surge of energy coursed through her, a violent rush that made her knees buckle. She felt her mind and body straining against the force, as if something was tearing her apart, but she held on. The countdown stopped. The hangar fell into silence. V0X staggered back, breathing heavily, his eyes locked on Cassandra as though seeing her for the first time. "You did it," he said, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "You stopped it." He fell to his knees, his body slowly deactivating. His strength was draining, his systems beginning to fail. It was as though the last piece of his humanity was slipping away with every passing second. Cassandra took a step toward him, her breath ragged but her mind clearer than ever. "You were never meant to be a tool. You were just as human as I am, but you couldn't see it. Now it's over." V0X's body gave one final twitch before it shut down entirely. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Cassandra stood over him, breathing heavily, her mind racing to process everything that had just happened. She had made the choice. She had stopped the destruction, but at what cost? The weight of the decision pressed on her chest. She had saved herself. But had she saved the world? Clara finally moved, her voice breaking the tension. "Cassandra, she stopped, staring at the lifeless figure of..." Cassandra swallowed hard, feeling the tears well up in her eyes. "I didn't just stop him. I ended everything they tried to make me. I ended their plans." For the first time, Cassandra truly understood what it meant to be free, to choose her own destiny. She wasn't just a prototype, a weapon, or a tool for some grand experiment. She was her own person. And that, more than anything, was what had always been worth fighting for. As the smoke and debris settled, Cassandra and Clara walked toward the exit of the hangar. The outside world stretched before them, uncertain, full of unknowns. But they weren't afraid. They had the power to change the course of their own lives. Cassandra's mind raced with thoughts of what she had learned. The lies, the manipulation, the control. But more than that, she now knew her true purpose. "We did it," Clara whispered, her voice full of wonder. Cassandra turned toward her, a small smile crossing her lips. "We did." But as they stepped outside, something caught Cassandra's eye. A figure standing in the distance, watching them with a cold, calculating gaze. It wasn't over. But this time, Cassandra was ready. In the end, Cassandra learned that her purpose wasn't written in the code that made her. It was hers to decide. In a world full of uncertainty, one thing remained clear. Freedom wasn't just about escaping the past. It was about choosing who you wanted to be moving forward. What do you think Cassandra will do next? What would you do if you were in her place? Let us know in the comments below.